New videos every day.
That's why, say, diet sodas don't really work. In every study in diet soda, they find that people do worse on the diet soda. And it's because they took this chemical stimulus that actually didn't force them, but made them overeat other things. And it really didn't help their weight at all.
Life, wisdom.
So, Dr. Bellonzi, I would like to talk about what you eat and maybe what foods you would never, ever eat under any circumstance.
Okay.
So let's maybe just start with the beginning of the day. Let's start with breakfast.
Yeah, we probably both get asked that quite a bit, because breakfast, when you start talking about good and bad foods, you suddenly eliminated most people's breakfast.
Yes.
Because if I'm going to start off with what I truly avoid, I really don't know of a cold cereal that is good. And I avoid those pretty much across the board.
Me too.
And we could name all the different companies. Unfortunately, we got told long ago that either the 4 food groups or the food pyramid or whatever, that was a good breakfast. But in most cases, you're just eating flour with coloring and added sugar, and it just doesn't really turn out to confer much health. Some of them are enriched, so we can get excited, but I just don't see cold cereals as a good way to start the day. Neither do I see pancakes and waffles and all these kind of things. So suddenly I've ruined the traditional breakfast.
Right.
And it's not that you can never, ever have a pancake, but I probably wouldn't eat it every day. Right. And I don't eat them just because I don't feel that great when I eat them. It just, I want to keep the edge. I want to stay with it. So conventionally, the American breakfast, I would say I probably don't touch. What do I eat? There's a variety of things. I'm a real fan of things like smoked salmon, the old, although I don't necessarily eat the lox, or which is lox and which is bagels. I don't eat the bagel, right? But you can. There are no breakfast police. Eat different foods than that's what is customary. There are some grains that I would think have some value. So if I were to consume a grain, which I do sometimes, I would be eating a hot cereal. So quinoa is getting more and more popular. I like it because it's got a higher protein component. It can be made into pastas and things as well, and make them a little more valuable. But I would want a whole grain, again, like a hot cereal. I might put some fruit or something on it. We talked about the fact that yogurt is very popular. I do once in a while have some yogurt. But if I'm going to say that I eat a healthy yogurt, I'd probably go with goat milk, and I'd probably go with something that's I made myself if I have the time, or it's something that I know is not too processed, because there's a lot of additives that I just don't want in that food.
Right, and a lot of sugar and even aspartame that you find in some of the commercial yogurts.
And exactly, most of the flavored yogurts are going to have either a chemical sweetener or a lot of sugar in them. Even though it says fruit on there, I'm yet to see a lot of real fruit in those things. It's kind of a syrup on the bottom. So I would probably caution people to get a plain yogurt. And again, goat milk tends to be a little safer for people. And if you can get raw milk, even better. But get some plain yogurt and then put your fruit on it and eat it together. Do it that way as a little more of a safety thing. And there are various breakfast choices we can make. Sometimes we have our functional foods that are a protein and other nutrients. Once in a while, I'll use that as a breakfast, and then make sure I have a good lunch later on.
Right.
But there are better choices than others for sure. Give me an idea what you would suggest.
Let's see. So for me, I feel the same way about the cold cereals, the kind of boxed cereals. And I used to eat those a lot as a kid, of course. And I remember always complaining that, Mom, I don't want to eat cereal. It just makes me hungrier later. And now that I understand, well, they've got tons of sugar. You get this huge blood sugar spike, and then you just immediately plummet down and you're hungry again. Well, now I understand why that happened. So I agree with you, the hot cereal thing. There's several different things you can find, in the bulk section. You can actually get the millet or the amaranth or whatever.
There's a lot of choices, actually.
Yeah, and kind of create your own. Of course, there's the steel cut oats or rolled oats you
would
can
be
find.
Much better than the parboiled instant stuff for sure.
Exactly. Brown rice and cranberries is something that I and dried cranberries is something I'll do for breakfast. I love eggs.
Throw a little cinnamon on.
Oh yeah,
because it helps the blood sugars, make some taste. Yeah, but keep going.
Cinnamon is great. But yeah, so I love eggs. I'm pretty much stick to my eggs that I get at the farmer's market. That I've actually been to the farm, the Vital Farms
farm.
So
you've seen the chickens.
The chickens. They actually move them around to different parts of the pasture, so they're grazing on different parts of the pasture. These are some happy chickens. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So yeah, and then I of course love smoked salmon as well. And let's see, what else might I eat for breakfast? Sometimes if I'm in a big hurry, I just kind of have, my bag of nuts. I've got some raw almonds and things like that. And I'll just kind of, eat some nuts to at least sustain me through. And I'll probably eat an earlier lunch if I don't, eat a sufficient breakfast.
Actually, I really like that. And almonds, if they're in the raw form, are healthier than a lot of the progression that goes to almonds. But still, it's a fairly healthy food. And we've talked about this before. They're now making paleo granola, and the reason I brought that up is because most of the granolas are really just junk. By definition, granola is a sweetened processed grain. I mean, it's maybe slightly better, but if you're just eating some nuts, and you can put a little bit of a sweetness to them, you could put a little honey and mix it or something, and make a fairly healthy food. It doesn't have to be something that would make your stomach turn. Some people don't want to eat raw nuts or some of these quote healthier foods. But you can dress them up a little bit and still have a good breakfast. Right.
And certainly, as you pointed out, maybe just eating the handful of nuts is not so exciting. But if you threw in a little bit of dried cranberries or a little bit of honey or something. And since you mentioned pancakes, one of the things that I was actually really thrilled about was when I learned that if you actually have a good high quality maple syrup that isn't a processed maple syrup, that doesn't have an ingredient list on it, that there's actually health benefits and minerals that you can get out of your maple syrup.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my favorite part of eating pancakes. So if I just have some good maple syrup and use that on my nuts or my brown rice or whatever, you kind of get that satisfaction of what is kind of maybe that typical breakfast, but without all the negative effects that you get from that processed syrup.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you and I have both been in front of somebody and we start telling them what we're going to do with their breakfast, and you can see their eyes just
they get very grim.
Yeah. They almost tear a little bit, So breakfast can be somewhat enjoyable and exciting without having what's conventionally taken. And we've talked before about colorings and additives. And if you look, especially for the cereals for kids, just how much added stuff there is to it. You've taken flour and shaped it into something, and it's got to have a color, and it may have to look like your superhero or something. Well, to do that, they just add a lot of chemicals to it in many cases. The whole crunch berry store, where people thought that they were really berries for a while.
Oh, right. And I think it's interesting that, especially in the kids' cereals that are geared towards kids, tons of artificial colors.
Right.
And what they're actually finding now is that artificial colors are associated with problems with attention, problems with behavior.
Right.
So there's children who are actually diagnosed with ADHD, and they simply take them off the artificial colors.
And they're no longer.
And suddenly they have vast improvements. So another reason to kind of avoid those box cereals.
Try some real food for a while, and that'll work well.
So let's maybe move on to lunch and dinner type of things. Maybe you can, again, kind of start with what you would avoid at all costs, something that you would never eat.
It's going to come right back to the processed food. I would never eat macaroni and cheese, especially some of them that have no real cheese in them. I'm going to stay away from a lot of the convenience foods, even though it's nice. There are some bars that probably I could say are better than others. Grabbing a Snickers bar for lunch, never.
Right.
That's not a good lunch. I mean, I guess we shouldn't name brands, but a candy bar for lunch, come on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of the, quote, nutritional bars aren't far from a candy bar. But then there's some bars that have a good protein content, some other natural things in them. Okay, you could kind of do that for convenience.
And you can tell just by looking at the ingredient label.
Yeah, take a look.
Is it mostly chemicals, or is it mostly...
Or is there some protein in there?
Right.
Because a lot of the bars have just maybe a gram or two of protein. I want 14 to 30 grams of protein in there if I'm going to use the bar.
Right.
But again, there's a variety of things. I'm going to try to stay away from the packaged foods, because we know that there's EPAs that come from the packaging. We know there's phthalates that give them a smell. And these chemicals, a lot of the snack foods, they put preservatives in them. Some of them are actually used as pesticides. So I don't want to eat pesticides for lunch. If they're going to kill the ants, I don't think I want to.
I don't want to
eat
find out what it's going to do to me.
Because we know we can accumulate it over time. That one bar may not hurt me. So I'm gonna try to stay with more natural foods. And you could make the argument that those started natural. I'm not going to get into that right now. We know that we need a good 5 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables. And I say a preponderance of vegetables over the fruit. So I'm probably going to have to get myself a serving or two at lunch to make my quota. And I do try to have a lunch that includes some form of a salad. Unfortunately, most people think a salad is lettuce and 2 tomatoes, but I try to get a more of a variety. There's 250 vegetables out there. Let's try a few other ones. And you want the deep colors. I'm sorry, you're going to have to live with a few bitter tastes. That's what really gives you the value.
Right.
But we can make some healthy dressings, spices, and oils and things. It doesn't have to be the very sweet fructose corn syrup dressing.
Right.
But I'm going to try to have some form of a vegetable intake, and I try to eat them raw as much as I can. And then I want a protein source. If it's going to be animal meats, I want to, again, like we talked about, have a good, healthy animal that I'm consuming. Or if I'm going to use beans or legumes or something, I want to make sure it's a healthy plant. But I'm eating natural foods.
Right.
And that's going to be better for my lunch rather than taking in all the other things. How about yourself?
Let's see. So for me, of course, I would echo everything you said about avoiding the processed foods. Certainly, you mentioned the pesticides. There are several different pesticides. One of them is the organochlorine pesticides. Again, a chemical that is banned in several different countries, but we don't even require it to be labeled here in the United States.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's safer and it's way easier to just avoid all those processed foods altogether. I don't even have to worry about, does it contain this or does it contain that? I eat a lot of vegetables. And the thing that I love about vegetables is you can eat a large, volume of veggies or whatever. And, the thing about eating real foods that I found is you actually have to chew a lot more. So my jaw will get tired. And part of, not only, the mastication itself gets kind of tiring, but the more that we're chewing, the more we're creating enzymes, the better we digest our food, the more it sends those messages to our body to fill us up. So when I'm eating those actual real foods and actual vegetables and stuff like that, I actually feel more full and satisfied after the meal. So I eat a lot of vegetables. I do try to incorporate salad at each of my meals, adding things to it. Like, adding raw almonds is one of my favorite things to, add into a salad. Avocado. I eat a lot of avocados. And let's see what else. I kind of try to take what are typical things and things that I really enjoyed as a kid to eat and kind of make myself a healthier version. Okay. So you mentioned macaroni and cheese, which was my favorite food as a kid.
It's a very popular food, yeah.
And so I know, if I get a good high quality cheese that comes from grass-fed cows that doesn't have a really crazy ingredient list, that'll be a healthier cheese.
Okay.
And then for me, just the cheese is what I loved about the macaroni and cheese. So just having that cheese, something like that, and then maybe I'll, melt it on broccoli or something like that, then I kind of try to satisfy what would be my cravings or the things that I would have eaten 10 years ago when I was still eating processed, and kind of find a healthier way to do it, That's kind of a kind of standard for me that I use a lot when I'm kind of creating meals. And again, the maple syrup is a good example of that. I used to love eating pancakes. So now I can kind of still somewhat enjoy that experience, but in a much healthier way. So I find that really helpful. Let's see. So I guess if maybe we moved to, snacks or maybe desserts.
Okay. I'm not against desserts. Everybody enjoys them. I don't think that we should get into the habit of figuring that every time you eat, you have to have a dessert. Some people kind of go that far. But there are things that you can do fairly in a healthy way. I'm going to avoid, again, the highly processed snack foods. There's just, it doesn't mean you can never, ever have them, but you probably don't need to be eating a lot of chips and the packaged foods, not just candy bars, but all these different snack foods out there. If you can, it's probably better to do something that's more like a vegetable or whatever. But if you can stay away from the chemistry, if you can stay away from the things that are altered, you don't necessarily need flavor enhancers. And of course, we've just mentioned preservatives and everything else. There is taste to actual food. So fruits, of course, nature's snack. There you go. You just eat them.
Nature's dessert. Exactly. Perfect dessert.
You don't even have to do anything to them. Maybe you have to peel them, whatever. So that's one thing. As you've mentioned, nuts can be put into different dessert type situations, I guess you can put it. There are healthier desserts that can be even cooked than others. Sometimes you might make some chips that are just baked sweet potato or
I made kale chips last night.
There you go. So there's ways to be creative. And I know sometimes that takes some time, and the demand has actually gone up for these things, so we find more of them.
Right.
Hopefully more healthily packaged than we would find in other snack foods. But again, I want to make sure there's not too much new to nature chemistry in what I eat. So I'm going to try to find a snack that natural is kind of overused. I'm going to try to find a snack that hasn't been altered too much from its original form and see if I can consume that and still enjoy it. And I would say the biggest thing that I see in our weight loss program is I get people away from those foods. And one remark I'll get a lot of time is, vegetables actually have taste. Like it's a new awareness for people.
They're surprised.
Because they try to hide it, I guess, or maybe not even eating them. And the same with fruits. You don't have to pour sugar all over a piece of fruit. If your taste is right, you'll find that it's very satisfying just to eat the fruit itself.
Right. And your taste buds will kind of adapt to what you're doing. So if you're constantly overloading them with a lot of food chemicals, then the vegetables might not really taste like anything.
Right.
But certainly for me, now that I've been pretty much off of processed foods and stuff like that for a long time, I have a very, heightened sense of flavors. And I mean, I find all of the different vegetables really flavorful.
And you've actually brought up a good point. You're going to be safer that way. You don't need the chemical sweeteners. The problem with the chemical sweeteners is, first of all, they're altered chemistry. So you might be eating a chlorinated sugar. We don't need the extra chlorine.
Right.
You're eating something altered, but it stimulates a response that will probably make you go overeat other things. That's why, say, diet sodas don't really work. In every study in diet soda, they find that people do worse on the diet soda. And it's because they took this chemical stimulus that actually didn't force them, but made them overeat other things, and it really didn't help their weight at all.
Right. Now, I have found that for myself, I do like to end my meal with something sweet.
Okay.
And it kind of gives me a sense of satisfaction. And what I found with my health coaching clients is that it really makes it easier for them to stop eating if they have something that they end their meal with. So, and then I just kind of try to do it in reason. So like you said, fruit is a great thing. I love kombucha. And so I actually get the big kind of gallon of kombucha at the market. And so that'll kind of be my dessert sometimes. Okay. And I'll just have a little, shot.
How about we make everybody happy? When I have somebody that tells me that, I allow them a square or two of dark chocolate.
Yeah.
And if you hold from eating the entire bar, just allow yourself those two. Your brain will catch up. You will have gotten the satisfaction you're looking for.
Right. And
you've gotten some benefit too.
Exactly. And the cool thing about raw chocolate or dark chocolate
there are raw chocolates
is that
now. That's
you don't have to eat a whole lot. With one of those commercial candy bars,
they're pretty rich. Yeah.
You just can sit there and eat the whole thing. You could eat a king size in one sitting. But with that dark chocolate, you eat a bite or two and it satisfies that sweet tooth. It kind of takes care of you. I think moderation is key. I think that not depriving ourselves completely of things is really important. And just, kind of...
Food should be enjoyed.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And certainly it's only going to be sustainable and practical if we enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful talk. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment and let me know what you eat. Please let me know what your thoughts are after what we've shared today. If you have questions, if you have topic requests, I hope that you will like this video and subscribe to the Psychetruth channel. I'm Psychetruth Correspondent Corrina Rachel. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.